Hi, and welcome to Gaetana Nesbit's Assignment 1 Fundamentals of Collaboration for EDSP 423. Let's jump in. So first is the review. In the review, I'm going to go over the different readings we had in class this week, which are the interaction textbook 1, 4, and 8, I believe, as well as a collaborator's roll sheet. Now let's see how they connect back to the main idea of collaboration for the week. So first, in the interactions textbook on chapter 1, some things that stood out to me was collaboration is very successful when every individual in the group has a mutual goal and they're willing to work towards that goal for the best outcome. And I see that in special education when you have the IEP team, they all get together, mutual goal is to get the student to be the best that they can be, and everybody shares different parts of that, of how to make that happen. Some other interesting parts I found was in schools, it's mandated or implied in legislation that you must collaborate, which I can see like where I'm from, the Meridian School District, now the West Ada School District, they had every Wednesday school would start later by about 20 minutes, and that allowed teachers to collaborate time, as well as in the Idaho State Manual for Special Education. A lot of it is implied that you work with an IEP team, which is going to make you collaborate, which also brings me to the point of it's central for special education services collaboration is. Also, the challenges that came out from it were some things I didn't think about but would make sense, because anytime you talk to a person there's challenges. And some of that was just the structural and professionalism of schools and of people, power and relationships, stress, everything like that. Because when you talk to a person, it's going to be hard no matter how old they are or what you're doing. But it's especially going to be hard in special education because you're talking to them about somebody's child, and people are very different when you talk about their child compared to something else. Let's continue on. So for the chapter 4 in the interactions textbook, it talked about interviews, and I'm trying to tie interviews and collaboration together. And some points that I found interesting about it and thinking about it was a lot of the main things, like you can see on the screen, that are keys for interviews to work, like different types of questions, like open and close, are key things that can work in collaboration. Like when you're sitting at the table for maybe an IEP meeting, and you're running it, maybe have an open-ended question where you ask the parents, well, what would you like to see for your child? So you know they're happy. And then maybe a closed-ended question would be like a yes-no question of, well, do you want this, yes or no? Clean, to the point, simple. And one thing that I really stuck out to me in the chapter was pauses. And to tie that into collaboration, there we go, is just to give somebody a time to think, especially like if the parent's new and it's the first time for an IEP meeting. They can sit down and you can say something and it gives them a moment to go, does this make sense to me? Do I want this? What are we thinking? And it allows questions to occur too, because it's something very important that's happening for a child, and I feel like people sometimes will need time to sit back and think about it, because I know I do. So I found that to really stick out to me and tie back to what we're supposed to learn this week. For chapter 8 in the interactions textbook, it gave a lot of different types of collaboration, not just your basic collaboration, with consultations, instructional coaching, and mentoring, and it gave a lot of definitions, so I kind of put their definitions there and a couple examples just to tie it into how collaboration works. So for the collaborator's role one, a lot of what was in that document was just different roles different people play, like your principal, the teacher, the special ed teacher, your paraprofessionals, etc. And to me, you just tie all of that back into the beginning in chapter 1, where individuals play certain roles for success to happen. And so to me, the collaborator's role showed how each person can play a certain role with certain things for the same goal of the student's success can happen. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I didn't want to take a ton of notes on that where I can just talk about it. Moving on to my interview. So let's jump into the interview. The who, what, when, where, why first. So who was the high school principal over at Moscow High School, and I interviewed them on their thoughts on the collaboration in the school, district life, special education, etc. And I'm going to be a little bit honest for this one. It wasn't a formal meeting. I was subbing at the school. The principal just so happened to walk in, and I said, hey, really quick, do you have 5 minutes to answer a couple questions for one of my classes about collaboration? I said, you can totally say no. I can email you, make it formal. And he said, no, he has 5 minutes, so I jumped on it and took the 5 minutes. Some things we discussed were his thoughts and views on collaboration in schools, in the district, and how he brings them all together. Something that really stuck out to me, though, when we were talking, was he was very strong to bring the point out of everybody has their own job. Don't do somebody else's job unless you have to. And when I asked him to expand on that just a little bit for me, so I could really understand where he was coming from, because sometimes people will say that and just because they're like, oh, I don't want to work, I wanted to see what his thoughts were on that, and he explained how each person has their own job, and if you allow each person to do their own job, you get a better success rate than if one person does all 5 jobs, because they get tired and life happens and all these things. But if each person does their part, you have more success. And I thought that was really cool, because it's not something I think about. I've always been the kid that like, oh, group project, okay, oh, you have this, you have that, well, I don't have time, so I can do the extra parts. And he's right, I get tired. I sometimes would slack on certain parts, because it's like, I don't want to, I'm not interested in it, but if everyone does their own part, it goes better. So I thought that was really cool. For my reflection, big things I walked away with for collaboration this week, of what the fundamentals of collaboration is key for success in schools and key to success for life, in all honesty. If you can talk with people and create happiness and just try that way, it works. I also learned it's the biggest role in special education. Individuals have their own roles to play to create success, like I was talking about earlier, well, last slide actually, and that interview skills can actually be used as collaboration skills, which I thought was pretty cool. Oh, going back to that, I see myself using it a lot in my future classroom, and just in the future as myself, especially since I'm waitressing right now to get through school, because being able to talk to somebody and work with people to get jobs done, to make goals happen, to create success is huge. And I see myself using that a lot more. The one thing I do see myself use is pausing. I never really thought about that. And I actually, yesterday when I was waitressing, I took advantage of that idea and I tried it. Where I go, what can I get you guys to eat? And if they don't answer within 3 seconds, I'm like, well, what are you in between? Here are some examples of something that's really good. This is what I enjoyed, just so I can get out of there. Because I'm ticket timed, and the quicker your times go, the better, well, you get bonuses at work. But I actually took a second and paused for 10 seconds, and I actually got responses out of people. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So I'm going to try using that some more. Lastly is my references and resources. I just used the textbook and the readings and then my conversations and came up with my own thoughts of what I thought about it for this week. And lastly, thank you for listening to my presentation. I really did enjoy this week of talking to people and really understanding collaboration through new lenses that I never thought about before. And just hearing thoughts of how it works differently in schools and with people. And I can kind of see some differences, but I see how a lot of it all just goes together and how you talk and act towards people. So I thought that was pretty cool. And the biggest point being that your ability to listen and learn from it, which was huge, and taking into account everything. But yeah. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy listening to my entire presentation. Thank you. Bye!